Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on some really powerful ideas about leadership.
Right, focusing on General Colin Powell.
Exactly. We've been digging into the Insights for Us podcast by Ola and Aloba, specifically their piece on Lead Like Colin Powell, to game-changing habits of a trustworthy leader.
Yeah, Powell definitely commanded respect, didn't he? And, it felt deeper than just his titles.
Absolutely. There was a real substance there. And that substance, as Ola and Aloba talk about, seems rooted in, well, clarity, purpose, and maybe most importantly, trust.
Hmm.
And that's why this stuff matters for, you listening, whether you're leading a team, managing family stuff, starting a business, or just trying to influence change. These are really core human principles.
And it's worth remembering, as the Source podcast points out, too, his career wasn't perfect. There were controversies.
Yes, definitely. The Iraq War context is, well, it's impossible to ignore.
But his underlying reputation for integrity, for trying to do the right thing, that seemed to stick, mostly.
Right. And that trust, it's the bedrock. Powell himself said it, and the podcast highlighted it. Leadership ultimately comes down to creating conditions of trust. Good leaders are trusted. Simple as that, really.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it?
It does. And what's also kind of amazing, something Insights for Us brings up, is his background. He wasn't like this star student destined for greatness.
No, he called himself a struggling C student, which is actually quite encouraging, I think.
Totally. It means leadership isn't some, magic gene. It's built. It's about habits, principles you can actually learn.
Exactly.
And that's our mission today, to pull out 2 key habits from that podcast, habits you can start using, like right away, to build trust wherever you are.
Okay, so where do we start? Habit 1.
Let's do it. Habit 1, truth creates trust.
This is that very direct principle Powell had.
Yeah, tell me what you know. Tell me what you don't know. Then tell me what you think. Always distinguish which is which. Sounds simple, almost, but under pressure, those lines blur so easily.
Oh, definitely. And the podcast is a great example of Powell living this, right? During the Desert Storm planning.
Yes, instead of pushing for, a bulletproof plan, he asked his team something pretty vulnerable.
What are we most likely wrong about?
Imagine that. The podcast mentions this uncomfortable, thick silence. I can almost feel it.
Yeah, asking that takes real confidence, I think. Confidence in your team, maybe?
Or confidence that finding the truth is more important than looking like you have all the truth.
Good point. And what happened next is key. Someone actually spoke up, a junior officer.
Right, pointing out a weak spot in the supply chain. Must have been daunting.
You'd think. But Powell's reaction? He didn't dismiss it.
No, the podcast says he leaned in, investigated it. They actually changed the plans.
And Powell believed that saved lives. That's significant.
It really is. It shows it's not just about risk management. It's about fostering intellectual humility.
Exactly. When the leader admits they might be wrong, it gives everyone else permission to be honest, to question things. You get better decisions.
So the practical takeaway for you listening, Insights for Us had a really neat suggestion.
Yeah, try this in your next few conversations, work, home, wherever. Ask, what might we be missing here?
And then this is the hard part. Wait, 10 full seconds. Let the silence do the work.
That pause is powerful. It signals you actually want an answer, not just, quick agreement.
Mm-hmm. And it leads to that tough reflective question for the podcast, too. Where have I accidentally created an environment where people only tell me what they think I want to hear?
Oof. Yeah, that's a deep one. It makes you look at your own reactions, right?
Totally. Are you really open? Or does your face, your tone, kind of shut down real feedback without you even realizing it?
It's a constant check-in we probably all need.
Okay, let's pivot. Habit 2. Presence precedes influence. This one felt maybe less obvious, but just as critical.
Right. And Powell's quote here is great. Leadership is solving problems. The day soldiers stop bringing you their problems is the day you have stopped leading them.
That reframes leadership, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just directing. It's engaging with the messy stuff.
Uh-huh. And the story they share about him becoming Secretary of State illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, yeah. His first week, not what you'd expect. Instead of just high-level meetings.
He went to see the maintenance crews, the janitors, cafeteria workers, the people often invisible in big organizations.
You could picture his chief of staff thinking, what is he doing?
Right. But Powell's logic was so simple, so powerful. I can't lead people I don't see.
Wow. It's about that basic human connection. Seeing people.
And the payoff. The podcast tells us, months later, during a crisis, those same employees voluntarily worked overtime.
Not because they were ordered to.
No, because they felt seen. because the Secretary of State took time for them. It wasn't about his authority, it was about that connection.
That feeling of being valued, it builds incredible loyalty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It taps into something fundamental. You could call it servant leadership, maybe? Understanding and meeting needs.
So how do you, our listener, actually do this? Insights for Us offers another practical step.
Yeah, block off just 20 minutes. Go visit a part of your organization or even your family, your community group, whatever, a part you understand the least.
And ask them, what would make your work more effective that I might not know about?
It's brilliant. It's about genuine curiosity, not pretending you know everything, breaking down those silos.
Mm-hmm. And the reflection question here is also really insightful. Am I showing up where people need me most or just where I'm most comfortable?
Yeah, that comfort zone trap. It's easy to stick with what's familiar.
But real leadership often means going where it's maybe a bit uncomfortable, where people might feel overlooked.
Right, thinking critically. Where does my presence actually make the biggest difference? Not just where is it easiest for me.
Okay, so wrapping this up, 2 huge habits from Powell via the Insights for Us deep dive. First, truth creates trust.
Be honest about what you know, don't know, and think. And seek out the uncomfortable truths.
And second, presence precedes influence.
Show up. See people. Solve problems with them. Don't wait for them to start bringing you problems.
Both building that foundation of trust, Powell valued so highly.
And crucially, as the podcast stresses, he built it through actions, day in, day out, not just words.
Yeah, it was consistency, truthfulness, presence, recognition.
And remember, this isn't just for CEOs or generals.
No way.
Yeah.
Leading a project, guiding your kids, contributing in your neighborhood, these habits matter everywhere. That principle of presence, for instance, you can see how that builds collaboration in almost any setting.
Definitely. So the final thought for you to chew on, the question this deep dive leaves us with.
Where can I lead more like Powell? With that integrity, that presence, that commitment to trust.
It's about looking at your own world, your interactions, and finding those concrete ways to build those connections. Truth and presence. Powerful stuff.
This thing, a pretty direct call to action.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Listen now. Share with friends and family.
Right. They're actively asking for engagement, and word of mouth shows confidence in the content, maybe.
Or at least a strong desire to grow their audience. But it ties back to that idea of sharing impactful stories, things people might actually talk about.
Makes sense. They believe the stories are worth sharing, worth discussing.
Okay, so let's just quickly wrap up the key points. We've got the podcast Insights for Us.
Hosted by David and Deb Aloba, written by Aloba.
Available on Spotify and YouTube.
And the main goal is sharing stories that challenge, inspire, and stir something within you.
With a recent copyright suggesting it's current, and a call to share it if you like it.
Seems like a fair summary. It positions itself clearly as a source of, well, thought-provoking and hopefully moving content.
Yeah. So for you listening, considering that aim to challenge, inspire, stir, what kinds of stories, what perspectives actually do that for you? When you're browsing Spotify or YouTube, what makes you stop and listen?
That's a great question to ponder. What really grabs your attention in that huge sea of content out there? Something to think about.